So overall, I liked tonight's episode, although I have to say, for a season with short run, they wasted a lot of time, and there were a couple things that made me go, huh? How does that work? But I'm not giving up on the show yet. There's still some good here. Let's get started. Welcome to the heart of the stories we tell. My name is Rob, and tonight I will be reviewing Game of Thrones Season 7, Episode 2, Stormborn. And if you've noticed, since last episode was named Dragonstone, we kind of have this theme where they're being named after Daenerys. I wonder if by the end of the season they're going to all be named after Jon Snow. After all, as we find out in tonight's episode, there's a duality to them. But if this is the first time you're finding my channel, I need you to click that subscribe button and of course enable alerts, because I put out all sorts of Game of Thrones and just storytelling stuff in general. And as of right now, I'm mostly talking about Game of Thrones just because it's the only one of the shows that's really on. I also do Wynonna Earp, and there's a new one coming out on Monday I might watch. But for now, let's get down into the nitty-gritty and talk about fire and ice, fire and blood, and what happens when the Stormborn came home. Of course, spoilers all the way up through now, plus anything from the books, because who knows what we're going to be talking about. We're probably not doing books much anyway. However, also, just on that off chance, although this wasn't too bad, just light trigger warning because overall this show has some pretty bad ones. Overall, the cast was pretty cool, and tonight's episode started not with a bang, but a little bit of a whimper, because we pretty much picked up right where we left off with Daenerys on Dragonstone. And we start off right off the bat with a theme of trust and who can you and who can't you. And while this is the Game of Thrones, so no one, you can trust nobody. But I have to say, I really like this scene. And it's a scene I wasn't sure I would, because I knew it had to come. Because sooner or later the discussion of why should she trust Varys had to come up. And you know what? It came up perfectly. Between him and Melisandre, I think that this was a great moment. Now with Mel, it was just the joke of, well, I guess it's a good thing with it, we're pardoning people who served the wrong kings. But realistically, what Varys' answer was really does be the only defense he could possibly mount. At the end of the day, I'm not siding with you, I'm siding with the people. You just happen to be on the people's side. And since Daenerys wants the people, it's a pretty good argument and manipulation. However, Dany did outright tell him, if you betray me, I'll burn you alive. Later, I kinda felt like her and Elena were really on the same page with that whole only trust them so far. This then leads into Sir Davos's first real scenes of the season, where some of the lines that he and Sansa are given are pretty good. They're worried about Jon and that it might be a trap, and I have to say, there isn't a 100% unwiseness to this. However, Davos eventually gets to exactly where we all were 6 years ago. Hey, dragons could be major weapons against the undead, right? Now, in the same vein, there's the later scenes where Davos and Jon do decide to go, but we'll get to that when we get to it. For now, Cersei is pretty good at politicking. And you know what? The foreign invader is coming is a big problem. Because at the end of the day, how do you stop that propaganda that isn't propaganda? I keep hoping for Jaime to see the light, but let's be honest, this is a good argument.
Will destroy the realm.
By bringing the Dothraki, they've brought a foreign invader, and as such, she has the ability to rally troops along the idea of, hey, this is our country, we don't want them to take it. Now, where that's interesting, what I really liked better was Lord Tyrell and Jaime, having an interesting discussion of what passes for honor between the two of them. And let's be honest, the two of them are going to be needed before this is all over, because we need generals, and right now we don't have any. But that really transitions to his son, and back to the Old Town Library, specifically the home of the Maesters, and currently the home of not only Samwell Tarly, but, as we learned at the end of last week's episode, where the gray-scaled Jorah has come. And this week, Sam finds out who Jorah is, and the fact that he's the old bear's son. This part of the episode is very exposition-heavy, and with very good reason, if you think about it. We need to explain what grayscale is, why it is that some grayscale is treatable and some isn't. Just at the end of the day, there's a shit ton going on. Now, Jorah's told the prognosis is pretty bad, and like I said, this is when Sam figures out that who he is. Now, we all knew that there was gonna probably be a cure, because Sir Friendzone has to at least make it a little bit longer. The fact that Sam finds it in some book and it's suicidally stupid to be done, but then they both have to be brave to do it, is pretty interesting. The fact that it's the torture of skinning a man alive is a level of badass for both men. I mean, let's be honest. I don't think there are many people that could be on either side of that operation and not pass out. Let alone, I mean, just... Of course it's going to work, of course he's going to go fight, and he'll probably be one of those 13 that go up into the north. I'm assuming this is going to be a pretty badass moment when he's going to take the sword that Sam stole last year. Now I'm going to skip the Grey Worm and Missandei scene mostly. I just want to say I wish the show had. Let's be honest, we did not need that even if it did keep the TNA ratio up and gave us Grey Worm's super tight ass, but whatever. Then we go to Arya. And Arya and Hot Pie meeting each other again was a reunion I didn't know I needed until they showed it to me. This was grade A. This was showing the humanity. This was showing why it is that we should care about these characters in a moment of just downtime and normalcy. Although the question of whether or not Hot Pie could actually give her that food for free makes me wonder how high he's risen here. I do question the convenience of Hot Pie knowing what happened in the North, and really seems odd to me for them to call it the Battle of the Bastards in-show. That really was just one of those things, though, that you gotta kind of roll with, because it gave Arya this choice. Last week she saw people who wanted to go home, now she had her choice. And of course she chose exactly what we thought she would. She's going home. And that's when Numeria shows up. And let's talk about that for a second. Numeria has built this super pack in the book, but this is the first we've seen it. All these wolves, obviously Numeria's in control, and obviously Numeria stopped them and let Arya go, but she didn't rejoin her. Maybe that's because Arya isn't truly 100% a Stark anymore. She can't recognize her. Remember, this is building to a bittersweet ending, and even though Arya is a Stark, she may not be part of the pack anymore. She might have gone too dark. That brings us to the true primer for tonight's episode, and the scene where this discussion is had.
A Targaryen cannot be trusted.
That was Bronzion Royce. He seems to be put in the position of making bad decisions and not helping. But that's okay, because Jon does overrule him. I will point out for the first time, Little Miss Badass Mormont was not on Jon's side for this. Because her and Sansa are still right. There is still a chance this is a trap and we need a king in the north. But he overturns them and says Sansa's just as good as a sister of the north. And that segues into Jon in the crypts. A lot has been made of the fact that the commercial showed him in the crypts, but it wasn't really Lyanna they were in front of, it was Ned. I don't fully understand what was going on in this, but I do understand it was. Now, I will admit him threatening Littlefinger did feel good, and did feel right, you stay away from my sister. But on the other hand, I can't help but say, Ned's only there and dead because he didn't work with Littlefinger, because Littlefinger undermined him. Let's be honest, Littlefinger still has some deadly moments coming up. I can only hope that between Arya, the Hound, and Sansa, they can figure out that he can't be trusted before he turns them on each other. At some point, I guess we should look at the elephant in the room, too, and that's Dany's attack plan, which is really Tyrion's plan redone through Dany. We're not going to attack King's Landing because it would look bad. We're not going to try to use the dragons because it'll kill a bunch of people. But I think this young lady has the right idea.
We have an army, a fleet, and 3 dragons.
Instead, the Ironborn are sent to pick up another army and redistribute troops. Not too bad. I have to say, this humanizing scene, though, really made me like Alfie Allen as an actor just a little bit more. The scene where he just gets up to walk away because the girls are flirting just felt so real, and made the whole scene just that little bit extra. Which I like. Just the face, the whole thing, it made me feel like I was getting up to walk out when my sister was getting flirted with. And trust me, any goodwill that scene could get, it needs. So then we have the final battle sequence. You know what? I'm going to go back and talk about Cersei and the crossbow for a little bit. Crossbow, really good, makes sense, works. You know why I'm bringing it up here? Because you know it doesn't work? The ability to throw fire from ships onto other ships with no explanation. I was hoping for a battle last week to retake Dragonstone and didn't get it. This week we got the battle at sea, and it was just Meh, maybe it's me. I don't care much for show you're on. I really dislike the Sand Snakes. I have no connection to Ilaria, and right now, the only Greyjoy I care about did jump in the water. And again, how were they aiming those flaming things? How could they see in the dark and the mist when the others couldn't? It's not like they have friend-foe locators. And just the whole ridiculousness of the way you're onboarded made me feel like I was watching a Disney Pirates of the Caribbean movie again, not A Song of Ice and Fire. And you know what? Yes, I get that it's bloody, and I get that it's much more badass than a Pirates of the Caribbean movie is, but it's nothing like I expect the books to be. And it just totally made me sit there and go, oh, maybe I'm being unfair. The battle was kinetic, it was energetic, and it was well choreographed. It also did have some high visual impact. So I guess I'm going to have to give them partial credit. Alright, but those were my thoughts on the episode. What about yours? Do you think I was too tough on the battle? Do you think I gave them too much credit for the way they thought? Did you also totally know that Jorah was going to get cured because someone was going to find a magical perfect cure? Let me know down in the comments. Also, let me know just in general. Is the show as good this season as it was in the last few, or even the first? In the meantime, next week we have some fun stuff coming up. Jon Snow is going to be on Dragonstone as the king in the north and going to try to make the queen his equal. And Davos is going to be with him, and we're going to see all sorts of fun. And as someone who's been reading the books and someone who's been looking forward to this, I'm really curious to see how this ends. Whether or not my theory is true about there being a slight connection to how the others need to be taken down. And of course, I totally expect that those scenes from the big trailer will be played out now. That we're seeing the drawing of those 13 people who are going to range north, and those dragons are totally going to come with them. But for now, those have been my basic thoughts. Let me know what you think down below, and of course, hit that like button, share this video, and in general, subscribe and help me build this community. I'm really trying to get something off the ground here where we can all talk about what makes these stories good, what makes these stories bad, and where they fall in between. But for now, it is getting late here, and this took me almost 45 minutes to record what is only like 15, so I hope you have a good night, and thank you for walking with me through the heart of the stories we tell.